Julian Chinter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I moved to New Zealand in part because I love the land. I love the mountains, the forests, the beaches, but I also love the people. And what I really noticed about New Zealand compared to America is that New Zealanders really care about fairness, and they care about looking after those who are the most vulnerable in society. When my parents first came to visit me here in New Zealand 10 years ago, they remarked about how they didn't see any people sleeping on the street. You know, coming from Los Angeles, they were used to seeing the impacts of horrendous inequality and a lack of a social safety net. It's very common there for people to be living under bridges and cardboard boxes. People are regularly bankrupted because they can't afford to pay for health care. So my parents thought it was wonderful that homelessness was so unusual in New Zealand because New Zealand had a social safety net, provided homes and shelters for those in need. When my parents came back to visit this year, they could not believe how much has changed since this national government has been in power. After 8 years, there is an ongoing housing crisis. There is a two-speed economy that is leaving the most vulnerable behind, and a growing number of people without homes who are left with no choice but to sleep on the streets or in cars. The budget should have addressed both the housing crisis and growing inequality. It should be upholding that core value of New Zealanders, which is fairness. A fairer tax system would tax the capital gains from investment properties the same as any other income is taxed. It is not right that people who go to a job have to pay tax on their income, but people rich enough to own multiple investment properties pay no tax on the capital gains from their income. That is not fair. A simple change like that would help reduce growing concentration of wealth in a smaller and smaller group of people, and it would mean that more homes would be available to first home buyers. The budget could have introduced protection for renters, which is something that is common in every other OECD country. There should be security of tenure. There should be a warrant of fitness on rental properties that ensures that every child has a warm, dry house to live in, even if their parents rent instead of own. Most importantly, this budget should have invested more money in building state houses. If we have a supply shortage, the government needs to step in and fill that gap urgently. State houses are at a record low per capita here in New Zealand, and that's part of the reason with the rise in homelessness. That's part of the cause. If we don't do something about it, more people will be on the streets and living in cars. If we build more houses, we can end homelessness. It is really that simple. It's housing first. It's been demonstrated around the world. This budget could have made real strides towards tackling climate change by putting a price on climate pollution. And that is fair. Polluters should pay for the costs that they're imposing on society. It shouldn't be left to taxpayers and the rest of us to carry the weight while they make profits on our losses through polluting our atmosphere, our waters. And not only would it be more fair to put a price on that carbon pollution, it could have been recycled into revenue. That revenue could have been recycled into a tax cut, returned to families from the bottom so everybody benefits. That would make our tax system fairer, and it would help transition towards a low carbon economy, green jobs. That is what is needed for the long-term future of New Zealand. The budget could have introduced much more logical investment in transport infrastructure, which would not only result in safer roads and cheaper transport, but also a massive reduction in climate pollution. The national government does nothing but give us excuses about why we can't afford to solve the housing crisis, why we can't take action on climate change, why we can't protect our rivers or get kids out of poverty. They are the party of protecting the status quo. They are protecting the elite. They are protecting the rich and making sure that the rich keep getting richer while the rest of the country is left behind. They are leading to a more unequal New Zealand. That is not fair. It's not smart. I don't believe that is in line with the values of most New Zealanders. And the truth is, we can be doing something to address all of these issues. We can and we must. The Green Party has shown how we can do this through a wide variety of policies that are entirely practical, simple, sensible. We need your help to make this happen. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.